In the mail today, I got a sample. This is from Gigabyte. It is the Gigabyte MIB Men in Black T3140. Oh, I'm sorry. No, this is the monitor integrated box. My bad. I got it wrong. I'm sorry. Anyway, this, you know what? I'm going into this completely cold. I have no idea what this is, but it appears to be a computer case. And then it has like a little stand on the top, which I'm gonna go ahead and assume ends in a VESA mount, so that you can mount a monitor to the top of a little desktop computer. Great for embedded applications, or if you need like a little POS terminal for a retail store, something like that. All right, so here we go. Ah, yes, that's exactly what it is. So you have a Gigabyte case, you got a little stand attached to it, and then you can attach, so you could put a touchscreen monitor, whatever kind of monitor you need, just like that. That's kind of cool. So here we go. This is oh, let's have a look at the back first. So let's see the hinge design. So it has a hinge lock cover, flexible hinge enabling monitor horizontal and vertical adjustment. It has cable and cord management. It is VESA standard, so 17 to 22 inch. Recommended monitors with 100 by 100 millimeter or 75 by 75 millimeter monitor holes. Okay, on the back, or on the case design, so it is an ITX case supporting a slim optical drive, although for most people buying a case like this, you probably wouldn't even have a DVD drive. It would just be set up once and then sit there forever. It has an integrated power supply, thumb screws for more convenient assembly, and it has a 60 millimeter cooling fan. So this is space saving, that's their whole pitch, by replacing the monitor stand with a computer. I'll buy that. Okay, so here's the overall specifications of the case. It's made of ABS plastic on the front bezel. It's available in black. It weighs 4 kilograms. Okay, one 3.5-inch internal drive. And then you've got two USB 2.0 ports on the front, as well as one HD audio setup. So I don't think this is sealed because it's like it's a sample product, so it's not really, this isn't exactly how it'll come at retail, but I believe this one also has a motherboard inside that I'm supposed to have a look at as well. So we're just gonna kind of go and find out what happens here, and we'll have this adventure together. So I'm gonna take out the cardboard thing. Ooh, it's falling apart. Okay, excellent. So here is the VESA mount. So this sits up at the end of the arm, which is here. Oh, this is kind of cool. So the case, by default, doesn't actually, like, you're not required to have the mounting arm on it. That's just an optional accessory that it looks like, where does this attach? Okay, this is kind of smart. So we've got the case here. All right, so let's put the case aside for now, I guess, and let's have a look at sort of the accessory focus first. So here we've got a manual, which may or may not be a final manual because, like I said, this is sample hardware, so here we go. So they give us a little introduction to the case structure itself. So here's your hinge, cable cord management. Okay, we already covered most of this. And then they give you, they give you a little installation guide. So they show you how to remove the top cover, install the motherboard, install the hard drive and slim optical drive, and then that's pretty much all that's involved, because when you're putting in an ITX motherboard, it'll have onboard video, onboard sound, so you need to install the CPU and RAM on the motherboard, and other than that, it's pretty much grab and go. So then you install, okay, here's the installation of the LCD monitor to the case. You connect the hinge onto the chassis and then mount the monitor before adjusting the angle of the hinge. So let me see. The back of the case is over here. So these two thumb screws right here come out, and then that is where you actually attach the hinge arm. So it slides into, oh here, cameraman, look up here. So it slides into place at the front, and then you could also use, there you go, clips right in. You could also use like some kind of security screws at the back. You could replace the default ones, and then you could make it so that your employees or customers can't remove the, I'm not actually gonna put this in now because I wanna open up the case, but you could make it so that they can't remove the motherboard from, or the monitor from the case. So that's kind of cool. And then Gigabyte has also included a motherboard inside for us to have a look at here. So let's take the case apart. We can have a look at the internals. So the top is all ventilation, which is kind of cool because that means if you're using a fan, it's actually going to have somewhere to pull air from. And then on this side, which side? On this side right here, we've got the vent holes for the 60 millimeter fan that it comes installed in the case. So that's pretty useful as well. There we go. Why don't we have a look at the power supply Oh, you know what? Let's take a closer look at the case first. I'm sorry. Okay, so here's the front of the case. It's a glossy plastic. There's your power button. There's your slim optical drive, and then you got your front panel connectors. It has kind of it's plastic, but you know what? It actually looks pretty nice in person. It feels not bad. It's not that kind of plasticky, like, this is horrible sort of feel. So then we go around to the side. This is obviously a Yateloon fan. Just like, yeah, it says Yateloon Electronics right on it. And then, yeah, it's all steel construction. I'm missing an I/O plate. I already knew about that just because this is a sample board, so it's not 100% retail hardware. They might not even have the I/O plate yet. In the power supply, that is a tiny fan. So this is using like a special small form factor style power supply. And we'll have a look at the power supply next. Here's the bottom, nothing interesting there. We'll have a look at the power supply next to find out just what's going on with it. So, it is a 160 watt power supply, which is, okay, 10 amps on the 12 volt rail, and then the 5 volt combined are 61 watts. So 10 amps, I'm going to do the quick math, times 12 is about, it can do about 120 watts on the 12 volt rail alone. Okay, so something to remember. Now, inside this motherboard is actually fairly high end. This is an LGA 1156 mini ITX motherboard, but even if you're using a high-powered CPU and you got like a couple sticks of RAM and all that good stuff, even if you're doing that, a power supply like this is still okay, because a lot of the power that gets used up by bigger boards is all the extra stuff that's built onto them. So where you might need a 300 watt power supply for an ATX board, you might get away with a 150 watt power supply if you're using the same CPU in a mini ITX board. It's just a different platform, and everything is optimized for low power consumption. So let's have a look at the overall layout of this board itself. You can see obviously it integrates very, very well into this particular chassis, where you can mount your slim optical here, and then your hard drive goes in this cage, which removes by these screws on the bottom here. So that's where your hard drive goes, that's where your optical drive goes. That was simple, very cool. Okay, so then let's have a look at the layout of this motherboard. I'm just gonna go ahead and unplug it so that we can have a better look here. This is very cool though. Mini ITX LGA 1156 board. There are a couple on the market, but this is obviously Gigabyte's offering. It's an H55 board. So the part number is the GA H55N-USB3. As I said a few times, it's got support for LGA 1156 CPUs, so that means Core i3s, Core i5s, and I guess you could put a Core i7 on it, although it's not really recommended with most ITX boards due to heat output considerations. I mean, look at this case, as well as power considerations, because I mean, what are you doing buying an ITX board if you're trying to use high power components? It doesn't make good sense. So then you've got also, this is cool, a Pci Express 16X connector. So while this motherboard with the H55 chipset does feature onboard video, you could also take it and put it in something like that Silverstone case that accepts a full-length graphics card, and you could install a full-length graphics card in this as well. Very cool for a motherboard that's basically like the size of a hand. Okay, so you got your 4-pin connector, I guess right where it belongs in the normal configuration, but a lot of the other stuff is pretty weird. So while on an ATX board, your CPU socket would be kind of here, and then a north bridge here, and a south bridge sort of here, this board just has the one chipset up above the CPU socket. Here, I'm going to orient this the way it would normally be, so the top of the I/O shield is here. Then you've got your SATA 2 ports up at the top. You've got your front panel ports as well as your USB 2.0 headers up at the top of the board, and then your 24-pin power, rather than being along the right-hand edge, is actually up at the top of the board. Dual-channel DDR3 is supported by this motherboard, and that pretty much does it for the onboard features, because, it, you know, like I said, it's a very, very small, very compact board. Very cool. So let's go around to the back and have a look at what we have for onboard connectivity. We've got a built-in PS2 combo port, so you can use a mouse or a keyboard there. You've got 4 USB 2.0 ports, and then you've got VGA, DVI, and HDMI output, as well as digital audio out. That's optical, digital. And then here, this is, what is this? That's neat. I don't know what that is. It looks like a USB port, but it's the color of their it's the typical color of their eSATA ports. But I'm looking at the the connection fingers inside. You know what? I'm sorry. That's an eSATA port. Wow, that was a blonde moment for me. eSATA. Then we have 2 USB 3.0 ports, 1 gigabit Ethernet, and then 7.1 audio. So thank you for checking out my combined unboxing of the H55N-USB3 as well as the Men in Black T3140.